sometimes what I find is that folks are so paralyzed because they're not focused on the fun and the joy of what it is that they're going to create or do or be, but they're so focused on the outcome. But when our only objective is to have fun, be creative, feel inspired, then how could we fail?
Gabrielle Bernstein, a role model for spiritual seekers.
I lost my father in July, and my father I credit with a lot of who I am and what I know and why I am who I am and how I think the way that I think and my positive mindset and things like that. He was a force. He was incredible, and we lost him very quickly. I've always, my whole life credited him with my work ethic, with, like I always say, the power of positive thinking, because every day, he would wake up and be like, today's a great day. You're going to get this done. I was very fortunate that I had two parents. I grew up in Santa Barbara, California. My parents, till my father died, were married, pretty normal middle-class family growing up. But, I always had my father there sort of reinforcing things that I was doing. I was a serial entrepreneur from a very young age. I was the kid that would pick the flowers out of your backyard and go to the front door and ring a doorbell and sell them to you. We were selling avocados on the street in Santa Barbara from our trees to the guys that owned the Mexican restaurants. We were just always these, I had a group of girlfriends, and I was, doing it alone or doing it with them. And I'd always come home from doing it. My dad would be like, I'm so proud of you, go do it again, go do something else. And so I always kind of had this drive that, he taught me this hustle at a really early age. And I always say sort of my hustle is innate because I always grew up with it and I saw it from him. He was a serial entrepreneur as well, had many different careers as I was growing up doing different things. And I would watch him do it, and I'd watch him do it. And he was always, positive about it. Even when things were not going well for him, he still had a positive mindset about it. And so I learned, when I have things that happen now as a mature adult and as a parent that are not positive and not perfect, as a business owner also, I try to take those things and turn them around and learn from them. I think that's really important. You take those things that happen that might not be how you planned them to happen, but instead of it bringing you down, let it bring you up. Take that, and how can I do that differently? And what did I do that I can learn from that? And how can I do something better next time?
Yeah.
I'm like rambling on.
And well, no, I think that that's going to probably be a core through line throughout this conversation. You have a lot of personal stuff that went down in your life that I believe today you can look back and say that I turned that around. I chose again for this.
Yes.
Your diagnosis with cancer. I mean, let's start there.
Well, let me be clear with that. So it's a soft tissue sarcoma. I got diagnosed when I was 30 with something called a desmoid tumor. And it's a soft tissue sarcoma that's basically a keloid scar on the inside of your body that turns into a tumor that can metastasize. Mine did not. I was lucky enough that it did not. That was a pretty crazy, traumatizing time in my life. They think it's from scar tissue from my breast implants. I'm pretty open about talking about all of that. And
so hold the front door. So scar tissue from your implants got into your brain?
No. Breast. It's on my exterior. So my desmoid tumor is on my left exterior chest wall. It's still there. I have to live with that. That's another big
chest tumor. Okay. Got it.
Chest. They thought it was breast cancer, not breast cancer, after they took a biopsy of it, which they should have never done, because once you cut into these tumors is when they metastasize. So I was very fortunate that mine did not. I went through 12 rounds of high-dose methotrexate chemotherapy. At the time, I was a wardrobe stylist. I was living in Los Angeles, dating Kevin, who is now my husband. And I was lucky enough to have a great commercial director that I would work commercial jobs and big teams of crew. And I would fly back and forth. In LA, I would do my chemo at Cedars-Sinai. And in New York, I would do it at the time at St. Vincent's. And it was kind of crazy that going through all of that. Well, first of all, for the first 3 weeks that I was diagnosed with it, I was not told that I was not going to die from this tumor. So that was kind of powerful to have to wrap my head around the fact that I don't know if I'm going to live or die from this. I don't know what this is. So that you make a lot of deals with yourself and mantras for yourself to kind of get through that time. But then finally, when I found the right doctor who gave me a correct diagnosis of what it is, a desmoid tumor, which at the time, not a lot of people knew how to treat them. It was heavy resection, which means a very major surgery where I would lose my pectoralis major, minor, my serratus, my collarbone, and I would basically be deformed on the left side. Or I could do radiation or chemotherapy, which is what this doctor at UCLA specialized in. So he sent me to his friend who was doing the methotrexate trials, and it actually worked. So but it's kind of crazy. You're lying in a hospital bed. I didn't have a port in. It was an intravenous chemotherapy. So I would be admitted to the hospital for 8 hours each session. And they would come in hazmat suits carrying this big yellow glass jar of methotrexate and pump it into my veins. It's kind of crazy.
God.
It's kind of crazy. And then you'd have to hold it in your body for a certain amount of time and then release it and flush it so you don't have liver failure. It was kind of crazy. That was an interesting time.
At 30 years old, this is what you're going through. Yeah.
At 30 years old.
Yeah.
And I was still living in LA. Kevin proposed to me during this, and then we got married 3 months after 3 days before 9/11. It's another story. So I'll tell you about lost family members from that. So that's kind of crazy. But the tumor and going through the chemotherapy, I have to tell you, it's sort of, it's just one of those things. It's who I am today. I live with it. It's sort of like my little peace person there. It's like, it's there. I'm conscious of it. And I know that I'm bigger than it. Mm-hmm. And I know that it's not going to hurt me and I'm fine. And if it grows again, we know how to treat it.
Yeah.
So it's just it's just part of me now.
Yeah. Beautiful. And then shortly after you had your son, Shane, is that timeline correct?
Correct. Well, no, actually, that's not true. So my tumor grows from estrogen, and my oncologist did not want me to carry the child because of the estrogen when you're pregnant. So we had to go through surrogacy at the time was illegal in the state of New York, legal in New Jersey, Florida, and in California. And so we're like, let's go to California. Kevin grew up in Brentwood. I grew up in Santa Barbara. Let's do it in California. So we went through, at the time, this was, Shane is turning 18 in March. So this was, 16 years ago. Getting a surrogate was a different process back then. It was like, you really are, you're making scrapbooks and you're selling yourself and it's this whole thing. And that took about, almost a year to find a surrogate. We found a surrogate, went through IVF. First time she got pregnant, she miscarried at 12 weeks. And then second time she miscarried at 16 weeks. But we had seen a heartbeat. We had named him Luke. We knew it was a boy. A whole crazy story. I was in Sacramento when I, going to the doctor with her and then finding that there was no heartbeat and having to go through the DNC with her for all of that. It was horrible. And then I felt terrible for her and she quit because she really didn't know what to do at that point. So I went back to New York, sort of, I'm not knowing what to do. And they were thinking that possibly the methotrexate had ruined my eggs. So they were suggesting adopting or getting an egg donor. So we were looking at, egg donors. And that's when I got pregnant with Shane.
Right.
I went through IVF one more time, didn't work in New York, just to try it on my own. And none of my eggs were good. So I finally just got pregnant naturally. And I'm like, I'm keeping the fucking kid. Sorry, I am not giving this up. This has taken we always call Shane like the $1 million baby from going through like IVF so many times in surrogacy. And it was literally insane. So I told my oncologist, I said, if my tumor starts to grow, I'll end the pregnancy, but I'm going to do it. And my pregnancy was completely normal. I had a healthy baby boy, Shane. And when he was born, people were giving me gifts to represent him. And I was like, I am not going to wear this. And someone gave me this necklace. And I was like, I am not going to wear this necklace. I've seen like 90 other girls with the same necklace. I'm not going to wear this thing. I want to wear what I'm going to wear. So I went up to 47th Street, being a stylist, being super resourceful. For so many years, we'd have directors who would like literally give us a pack of American cigarettes that were like blue and be like, I need 150 of these jumpsuits for our airplane scene tomorrow by, so like, you're resourceful as a stylist. So I was like, and I'm outgoing. So I was like, hey, someone make this thing for me. I finally found one. It was like a simple dog tag. It said Shane, and I sourced a very heavy long gold chain. And I would wear it on set when I was a stylist. And literally it was a conversation piece. Instantly people said, wait, what does that say? It's my son, Shane. Oh my gosh, my wife would like that. Or, oh my gosh, I need one. Can you make a different shape? Can you do this? Can you do a different chain? And I was like, I can do any of this. So I started making them for people on set. And I made one for Uma Thurman. And she happened to get it delivered the day that she was shooting a Glamour magazine cover. And she wore it on the cover of Glamour. And that was very helpful. But at the time, there weren't that many people. No one was doing direct to consumer fine jewelry that was customizable. Really, no one was doing it. So,
or like direct
literally,
to Uma.
Well, I got pretty lucky. I got pretty lucky with that and a few others that came afterwards.
Well, I wouldn't even
So,
call that luck. I would actually call that hard work because you put yourself in
yeah,
the place where that was possible. And also,
yeah,
it's not, yeah, I feel that's a little different than luck. I feel that that's sort of the natural order. You put yourself in these places, you worked your butt off, and you continue to, and you also create really cool stuff.
thank you.
So it's sort of inevitable, right?
It's fun to put yourself out there and kind of not know and just sort of like, okay, let's try this. And if that doesn't work, let's try this. Like it's just, I find joy in the unknown of what can come from being fearless.
There's people like you and I that are like, F it, let's go. I'm gonna make a chain necklace and then just like be so bold to sell it to Uma Thurman on set, right? Like there's that personality type. And then there's folks who are creators and just beautiful, humans in the world that are just making and creating but terrified of putting it out there, or even terrified of starting. And I think that the sort of let's just flip it and go will work for some folks. And then I think for those who are out there that are like, well, I want to have that switch and I want to have that flip and I want to do that too, it can be very overwhelming. So instead of letting that overwhelm you, right? I'm just going to speak to that person right now. That's like, oh, I've got this thing I've been sitting on, the thing I've been dreaming of, but I just don't believe it or I'm so afraid of it. I always like to encourage those folks. They may not have that Jennifer Fisher chutzpah to like, jump out and do it, but you have something in you. You have a small step in you. And so sometimes when we even just take that small action towards that big vision and big dream, it starts to create an energy and a momentum that starts to put us into a different perspective. Oh, wait, okay, I just did that small thing yesterday to do this. I was talking to a really close friend of mine, Jen, who's a lawyer and he wants to change careers. And I was like, okay, you're in your 40s, you've been doing this forever. It's not going to happen overnight. And he's terrified of it. And I was like, just do one small thing daily towards that goal. And so I think that, you can assess, listeners, who you are on that spectrum. Are you the Jennifer Fisher or are you the lawyer? Who are you on that spectrum? And take this advice now that anyone can make that shift in that moment, but it doesn't have to be such a huge shift. It could be a small one and that's enough. And I think it's
I
really
think people have to
valuable.
stop worrying about. Yeah, I think people have to start worrying about the outcome so much and stop worrying about people's perception of the outcome or what, that's one thing that I, even in my career now, I feel in the last 2 years has really changed for me, 3 years maybe, of where I just don't really give a shit anymore because I'm not really looking outside of what I'm doing for anyone's approval or for anyone's opinion. I'm really
What
just
allowed
doing
for that shift?
Yes.
What allowed for that shift?
I was talking about this with someone, and I think it's just a maturity level you get to where you are. I feel so comfortable finally with who I am that I don't, and I'm okay with not everybody loving me. I'm okay with not being everyone's person. You have to, I think you get to a point where it's just, I have my people in my community and I have the people that I'm going to relate and resonate with and vice versa. And you have to, first of all, just be, willing to meet more people also and take the meeting. That's another thing. Like I'm going to take the meeting, talk to more people, find more people, put yourself out there and just be willing to accept whatever comes from that, positive or negative. And I just don't, great. If it's negative, great. What can I learn from that?
Right. I love that because, my husband's a lawyer. He runs our business, but he's an attorney by training and formerly a banker. And so he's got this very analytical mindset. And sometimes he'll be like, well, we don't need to take that meeting because, and I'm always like, stick around for the miracle. Like, who knows what's going to happen here? And sometimes it is exactly as he expected. And it's like a big waste of time, but it's never really a waste of time because that could lead to another connection or new learning or anything. But there are times when we would have written something off, but by actually just taking the meeting, it becomes something major. And so I think that even if you're not an entrepreneur, the idea of like take the meeting, like go to that coffee with the mom at pickup or go to that class or do that thing that you otherwise might not do and just be blown away by what can transpire.
Exactly. I took a meeting yesterday that I didn't think was going to be anything and I was blown away by the end of the meeting. So it's just one of those things that you just don't know, and
Yep.
you have, it's like go to that party. That's another thing. Like for people that have social anxiety, I every time I go to a big event by myself or to a party by myself, I used to be like terrified of doing it and yeah, nervous, but I just went to a few things by myself recently and I had the best time. And it's you get to go out there and just go and meet more people and just, there's such power in just saying hello and saying,
Yeah.
hi, it's so nice to meet you. Or if you see someone that you recognize, you can introduce yourself and from that comes something else. It's really powerful if you just sort of step out of your comfort zone.
When you walk into a room, you have this energy of like, I'm going to connect. I'm going to say hi. I'm going to be a presence in the room. And it's an innate quality, but it's also, I think, an intention, right? Like I want to show up and bring my best. And I think that is a quality of a lot of entrepreneurs is like, if even just a smile or a connection or like a personality that's entering a space, it actually lights up the brain of another human and it creates that connection. Whereas, the moment that we walk into a room with like that sort of low vibe energy, it can really be triggering to people, which we don't really, that's not something that many of us really get. It's like, you think, oh, my mood doesn't affect anybody else, but it does. And so I wonder, like, that positive attitude, that seeking solutions rather than problems, that like all of the things that you've shown up for life with, how do you think that that's benefited your career, your personal life, all of the above?
Oh, I firmly believe that I would not be where I am today if it wasn't because that's how I run my life and day. Like every day I wake up and I wake up with a clear intention that my day is going to be a great day. I'm going to have a great day. And even if something bad happens today, that's still a great day.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
whatever that bad thing is, I'm going to learn from and I'm going to take something from that. So, I really believe it's just knowing that I'm grateful to be here every day and have the ability to wake up and to be alive every day. That's a big thing for me that I am grateful for the moment I open my eyes and I take my first deep breath.
But one of the things that I realized when I was starting out was that early on, when I was not in the career that I'm in now, and I was in PR and I was in my 20s and I was doing drugs, I was trying really hard to be cool. And upon getting sober at 25, I was like, no, nothing that I try to do is cool. What's cool is just being me. And
Exactly.
you bring you wherever you go, right? Like and you even said it, you're like, I don't give a about what people think about me. I'm going to just do the things I love. I'm going to be the person I want to be. And that you embracing you is what is so cool. Would you agree with me? I could say
Yeah,
that
we
to you.
all need to do that. Yeah, no, for so many years, I
Yeah.
was worried about what people thought of me and what as a designer, and I was insecure and all that. Like it's literally like you have to just live for yourself and trust yourself by being your most true, like authentic self is when magic happens. It's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Being your most authentic self. That's right.
yeah,
Yeah. So if
imperfect.
you were to leave us with any last messages about how to be our most authentic self, or really anything that you want to share, what would that be? What would you want to leave us with?
Well, people ask me all the time, and they say to me, how do you do it? How do you get out there and do it? You just have to get out there and do it and not worry. Like stop worrying so much about the outcome.
Mm,
Enjoy like the process, like go just enjoy as you're going through it and just see what happens because your outcome that you think is going to be the outcome is probably not going to be the outcome and you can't control it. And my father-in-law gave me this advice when I was sick, when I was going through my chemo. And he said, Jen, there's no point in worrying about shit that you can't control.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
great advice. It's great advice. And I use that all the time. Like you can't control it. You can't control people. You can't control things. And don't worry about it as much.
You've said twice now on the show that you can't control the outcome, and now you're really driving it home. And I want to actually show how much that mindset plays into your yesness, because sometimes what I find is that folks are so paralyzed because they're not focused on the fun and the joy of what it is that they're going to create or do or be, but they're so focused on the outcome. But when our only objective is to have fun, be creative, feel inspired, then how could we fail? And
Yeah.
you embody that. You fully embody that. If you like this video and you want to get more Gabby, check out the next one right over here.